What is going on today, guys? Evan Aldo here. I am here with special guest CVO Crypto. Second time I've had him on the channel. What's going on, man? How you doing on this Friday?
I'm doing well, my friend. Thanks for having me back. Always a pleasure. Looking forward to diving deep as always.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. So let's get into it. I mean, what are you looking at? What everybody wants to see. Sorry, guys, we did start a little bit late today, but what are you looking at on the charts? And you were talking about some harmonics, right?
Yeah, in the as far as like a harmonic would go, I mean, it's very similar to any other type of pattern. I think I shared one with you like a few weeks back.
Yep.
And it's everybody gets really wrapped up in harmonics in the sense of like kind of trying to predict, I think, a bit. And it's kind of one of those things where you have to like wait for it to. So I don't even have it pulled up yet, right? So I'm just kind of bringing that up, the idea of, similar to like a head and shoulders or a ascending triangle or a descending wedge or anything like that. You kind of have to like wait for those breakouts or completions. It's very similar. So I guess I will get into that in a second. I'm going to dive a little bit into some more local price action. So last time I was on here with you, I think it was like a month ago. I mean, probably it was like somewhere around this region. It was actually right around this region because we were on Debate Crypto on a Monday. And that's when it was 9/11. Yeah, 9/11 hit. Price action pulled back to like 24.8, which we were both kind of in line with back then. And then prices, slowly kind of progressed here. And just, short-term trading is definitely been the win over the last few weeks here. So this is, going on one more week would be a month since that time frame. So I guess it's been about 3 weeks. This box region up here is still the area I'm looking to run it back to.
Wow.
And it's 30,244 towards about 30,500. So new information has come out now too. So like last month, we were still in quarter three. Now that session has been closed. So that data is basically locked in, right? So I go off a lot of high time frame data and such. Prior to that, this level right here was a monthly level, which if you zoom out to the monthly time frame, see if I'm not glitching out here. All right, you can see how this is, where the candle closed and opened essentially. So this is essentially where like traders settled up back in July. And if you zoom out to the 3 month now, you can see that that's also a quarterly level as well. So big level if we come up to it. Go back to like a smaller time frame here. Got our August 23 high, right? So August high comes in that region as well. So that's right here in this level here. And the reason I'm really paying attention for that also is just looking at the market structure. So if anybody really was able to catch this short, right, which, anybody that's in the camp of like, going, which I do actually agree that we're probably going lower. But anybody that's, just giga short right now, right, came in this region. If they entered in this area here, with stop loss at the high, more than likely they'd move their stop loss to the more local high here, or more than anything, they've probably entered in this region right there with a stop loss just above that August high, right? So anybody that's been trading in this market in a short position since August is kind of at risk of getting stopped out of their position to push up to this region, right? It's going to basically come up and stop out all these highs right there. We've got some technical reasons to be targeting this area in general, right? So just for a few off the cuff area, reasoning there. And then yes, comes a potential harmonic, right? So when you're looking at, let me see if I can Google this real quick. So I think I sent you the books, right, where you were.
Yeah. I was starting to skim through that. I've been kind of busy, but I gotta get into the harmonics. That's the next thing I want to really learn.
I mean, it's definitely, like I said, it's something that it's an acquired taste. It's not necessarily always a for sure thing. I'm just going to show this. Real quick. So, what I'm looking at is a potential bearish bat pattern.
Okay. Now I see your screen. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've got this X to A to B, which is essentially a 38.2 to a 50%, retracement here on as far, and this is a sequence of Fibonacci's basically is what it is, right? So from you got your A to B to C, which is essentially going to be a 382 retrace to an 886, and then you got the last extension, potentially a 1618 or 168 to a 2618, going up to D. And even though like the price action when going into these areas is seems pretty bullish, that's a really bearish pattern. And one of the so I went ahead and shared one more time. Sorry, I keep unclicking.
Oh yeah, I got you. No worries. Yeah, I didn't know you have to. There should be a way just to give you permission to share anything.
Oh, it's all good. So, so potentially, and that's really the key word here is that, because this is not completed yet, we could very well just blow through here. But at the moment, we've got a nice little potential setup, right? So timing allows this based on fib time, potentially like lines up with about October 14th. If this is going to complete around that time frame, I'll definitely be looking for that. So it doesn't have to push up all the way to like 31K, really looking for this little box area, but, could potentially push all the way up to that 886 level up here about 31. And then from there, this is a pretty big, a reversal pattern essentially. So not only would we be looking at, a pretty nice pattern that's taken from July to October, so about 3 months to complete. Just looking at something a little bit more simple. And once again, that's a bearish pattern when completed. You'd be looking back down to the B leg at least, then back down to your C at 24.8. And then realistically, I'm looking down towards like 20K.
Yeah.
And what's great about that is, just like I said, just kind of looking at things simply, that potential harmonic is just something that just adds more confluence. But this is just still remains like the most simple outlook here.
Yep.
Right? Is it retrace back to that area? Yeah, like it's just I think that the 14th, the 13th region, right? Like, maybe that's not exactly the date and the time we kind of come up to these regions, but that's next Friday. There is the the ETF decision, right? I think is the next time frame when we're going to kick the can down the road, more than likely. So if we do continue up, which at the moment you've got really nice, just, upside structure, right? Low, high, higher low, potentially a higher high, higher low right here. We've got a little uptrend going at the moment. So just it structurally makes sense, pushing up into this region. And if timing allows, if we come up into that like towards next week, I think if we get that negative news, which I'm not a big news guy, I'm just kind of like adding on some timing aspect to it. That I'm looking for this like mid-month, and realistically just, back test of this trend line, super simple at the end of the day, which once again coincides with potential, high time frame harmonic, which time-wise comes in right at the 14th. So you're going to be coming into, back testing a potential trend line of this overall bearish pattern. You got a high time frame Fibonacci sequence, negative pattern at the same time, and into the 14th. All that would really line up, and especially if you get that negative news like that, whatever, it gets denied or ETF, blah blah blah.
Which is what I think too. Most likely, it's going to be negative news, and you're thinking that'll be around mid-October, which will dump us back down. Fierce rejection from 30K, if you had to guess, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I would imagine that we probably full on nuke to at least this gold pocket.
Okay. Quickly, or do you think that could take months?
Nah, like November.
Okay.
So I'm thinking like, probably like, and it would probably be pretty, that's relatively abrupt, go from like October to within 1 month. It's taking us 3 months to just kind of like, trend sideways. I guess if you really look back to June, we're really just kind of sideways acting here. So in the sense of our latest price action, I'd be looking for that drawdown like towards before the end of the year.
That's a big place too, because that's your 300 weekly moving average. That's the 300 weekly SMA around 21.7, I believe. Yeah.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, right around there. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Between this like 21.7, it's kind of a really big range, but I would honestly, venture to say that this whole box region, maybe not necessarily 18.5, but like the CME gap is down here. One thing I just like, so when looking at this, right, like I'm not looking for like to capture the most mega leverage trade, but like this would be the area I come into with like full force personally. And probably on the altcoin side, I know that's probably something that most people might disagree with, but if we get a move like this at this timing in Bitcoin, Ethereum's, the whole market's going to bleed terribly, right? Like this is a pretty sizable drop. Say we push up to that 30K, we push down in this region, that's 30%. If we're dropping into the 19 region, that's like, potentially like a 30 to 40% drop in Bitcoin. That's going to just, that's an FTX size drop, like that's just like, that's murder right across the board.
Yeah. Two questions real quick. One, what, just guessing, obviously it's hard to say, given we come back down to 21 or that range you just put, what do you think Bitcoin dominance would be at? And number two, where would ETH be at given, Bitcoin in low 20s, high teens?
Dominance, I don't know. Off top of my, like really top of my head wise, Ethereum is.
I mean, obviously, you do think ETH would continue to bleed against it would bleed against Bitcoin pretty significantly if if that does occur. Bitcoin rejects harshly off of 30K and drops down to.
I mean, like just anything in the market, everything's gonna really just come down. Yeah. The two most technical levels that I have mapped out for ETH is all the way back down to where we opened up this year. So this is actually the yearly open, 1194. This is a monthly naked point of control back to like January. That we left behind on the way up. And for ETH, on this, and the same thing with ETH, right? Just like an overall just look, right? Granted, we have a small, uptrend at the moment, right? Where we've got our little low, high, higher low, higher high. Wherever this, potential little higher low, comes in at, maybe we go down a little bit more, but more than likely, I imagine we're probably going to make our way up.
Wow.
In between this 1840 and realistically, I'm targeting here more than anything.
Wow.
And that's, saying that, assuming that Bitcoin goes like 30,000 plus Bitcoin, I'm looking at ETH to run it up to here. And in reality, that really isn't doing anything, material. You're still looking at a high, your low, lower high, lower low. Let's just say we push up to this region. Lower low, lower high, and then from there, I'm looking actually to take that all the way down to this region.
What percentage is that?
So same thing, right? Like looking at Bitcoin and Ethereum, that's about a 30, 35, 40. Okay. Pretty drastic move down if we get it, and that's, like I said, that's equivalent to, and I really think we're kind of overdue for this like type of move. Last time we actually saw probably a decent drawdown like that was probably FTX. I mean, even this like high to low is only like a 25-28% move. And this is the Bybit chart. So on Coinbase and on Binance, I think actually this is the low when it comes down to it. So you're talking about 2025, which is pretty average for just normal retracements, right? This one back in like February or March was about 2025. Okay. And so on. So this has been the move that I'm, just really been anticipating for months at this point. And realistically, I'm looking at ETH. I trade ETH more than Bitcoin, honestly. I'm just like kind of monitoring Bitcoin along the way, but up in this region. So we've got, once again, some local price action to kind of trade off of. But overall, right, like any kind of major move here. And from where we are now to this area is like 18-20%. Which is a pretty big move. If we
People are going to get excited. That's going to be
exactly. And then, imagine if we get that over this next week and everyone, as far as like news would go, right? We're going to have that decision coming up on Friday. And what will everybody be saying? It's going to be, the hedge funds are front running the decision. It's going to be good, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. We're heading back. It's bull run ready. I just don't think that that's necessarily the case. I have some areas that I'd be looking for. I'm very cautious in this area. So I'm like, I'm very neutral. I'm not just being like, oh, it's only going to do this. But at the moment, we're in a very clear downtrend. We have some really nice regions to come back up to and retest. Same thing here as Bitcoin would go. Come back up and knock out anybody that's been in a substantial shorts for 3-4 months at this point. We've got a a pretty high statistical target up here. This is the average, the price for the whole month of, I believe that was August, actually. Let me see here. Yeah, so the entire month of August, this is the average of price. So this is a mean reversion play back to this region. We've got a quarterly level once again up in this area. You've got a weekly, which is really not super substantial, but all those stacked together is a pretty big deal. And then once I start throwing range data on here, when we start throwing on, this is the quarterly ranges, right? So this is the whole range for the quarter. Q2, you can see the value area high comes in that area. We've got the August is just a little bit below that, right at that weekly. But July, value area high comes in right here. June, value area high comes in right there as well. You've got, looking at the entire year so far. Whoops. First day, man,
Yeah. No, it's interesting because that's going to be like the 1900 for 30K for Bitcoin, 1900 for ETH. That would make sense. And I think along the way up, ETH would probably continue to bleed against Bitcoin. You'd probably see Bitcoin dominance potentially get up to probably around 52, at least maybe 54. And then on the way down, we could potentially even see maybe high 50s, 60% for Bitcoin dominance if we do come down to 20K again. What do you think the odds are that, say this all plays out, we come down to like 20K Bitcoin, low 20s for Bitcoin, 12K for ETH, we get a bounce there. What do you think the odds are that that's the bottom and that we're kind of home free after that?
So timing wise, so once again, also like looking at this too, you got an exact potential harmonic bat here too for Ethereum. Ending on October 15th also, right into that spot as well. So it's an interesting thing. And once again, like this is not something that this is not a for sure thing. You can't necessarily really work off this until it completes. So it's very similar to looking at it's kind of like shooting, it's kind of like looking at an inverse head and shoulders before that last shoulder is completed. You're kind of shooting, like you're jumping the gun if you do it really the neckline's broken. So you really do have to wait to see if this completes. So it's just potential. I'm not trying to predict the market, but it's there, right? So far the first 3 major points line up really, really nicely, and timing does as well, right around that time frame of next weekend as well. And when looking at this, right, and kind of making up some targets, when looking at a potential, high to low Fibonacci pull, and looking at the 1618, which would generally be a major target to the downside, comes in just below this little box here, right? So like 1160 towards that 1190. So it definitely lines up, right? Everything kind of lines up in that region. And to answer your question of, is that like the bottom necessarily? We kind of have to take it as it comes type of deal. But I would say that I think that's when we see the altcoins start to outperform, right? So I think that's when the switch up will happen. Everything will, melt. And I think that this is going to be equivalent to a Rona style dump. So after the Rona dump, right, you had everything dropped, obviously everything kind of V-shaped recovered, but then for once the altcoins finally took off, right? Where years before that it was, and same thing we've seen only, Bitcoin and Ethereum kind of, trekking up, and the altcoins have just kind of remained still or just kind of sideways and down. So that's kind of where I'm at, is I do think that that's probably where we'll see things go, and for quite a substantial time. I think that's going to lead to a potential, if that plays out the way that I'm envisioning, that's probably going to lead to a multi-month major rally across the board.
So you think say we bottom out in November, or December, you think a lot of 2024, beginning of 2024 could be pretty bullish theoretically?
I think at least the beginning,
Okay.
like the first quarter, like kind of similar to how we did this year, where we had like a really solid like half
Yeah.
year. And like I said, we'll obviously like manage it along the way. But if I was to be looking for any kind of like altcoin positions, I think that when ETH comes down to this level again, and Bitcoin potentially back down to that 20, that's where I'll probably be looking to take some mid to long term positions on some altcoins for substantial moves. Like a lot of I look at Magic and I both look at a lot of high time frame averages is the big thing, and like for one that we targeted for Ethereum on the way into this year was the yearly pivot, right? So last year, so first off, we opened up this year down here, right? It was about $12. Yep. Erase all this price action. That was January 1, right? And the most negative news, everything was scary. Literally, probably the most gangster shakeout I think I've ever seen in crypto was where FTX collapsed right here. And everyone got out of exchanges, assuming that all exchanges were going to collapse. Binance was about to go down. Coinbase was about to go down. All the altcoins were getting hit with a potential SEC lawsuit, whatever.
Yeah.
We were tax harvesting into the end of the year, right? And then, so we came into the new year. We're looking for the average of price from last year. So it was 1989, right? So pretty sizable move. 65%. Hard to believe we'd get it at the time. Bitcoin was like 20, we were trading at 15.5 on Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And then and shout out to Magic on that for sure. Like he's definitely the king of, identifying these levels. But, he was looking for that 26, I think it's 26.8 was that, at the time. And same thing, we were trading like Bitcoin in this kind of type of environment. And, we were looking for those regions. And, we came up to them pretty quickly, even though it still took a few months. The reason I bring that up more than anything is because the altcoins, however, have not necessarily hit a lot of those areas as far as like their yearly pivot, right, for this year. So the thing with the yearly pivot is that we have like back tested this in our trading group for the most part. Every altcoin's not been back tested, of course, but Bitcoin, Ethereum, and for the high side, you got like a 70% hit rate that those yearly pivots get met in the next session. So during the year, we're running out of year, right? So for some of these altcoins, and for a really good example, let's just and mind you, barring we probably get another shit to bed moment. But we could get some very quick moves to the upside.
I was just about to ask you about ADA. It does look pretty bullish in the short term, in my opinion.
It does, and you could potentially starting off like a little Adam and Eve double bottom type deal. Mind you, say we push up next week, right? The alts might push up 10-20%. If Bitcoin and Ethereum do, and then say we get a 30-40% pullback, maybe we end up back in this region, which is essentially retesting this low. I'm just literally just pulling numbers out of thin air right here. But by the end of the year, we have a potential, and I'm really trying to like be very neutral when I say things like this. I'm not trying to get anybody too hyped up, not trying to.
End of this year, you mean? End of this year?
Yeah, potentially this year, like that. I mean, and it might not, it very well could go into next year. And that's why I say like Q1 could really be the time. But, this is definitely the target of the year. And mind you, if we kind of had a pullback in November and all the ends, I mean, that would be a very big move to have in like a month. So, likely that we don't hit this, this year, but it's a 200% rally, right? And I point this out, and that's just from, assuming we go back to the low. Yeah. Almost every single altcoin has a similar level, the average of price from last year. And, they're not all going to hit, of course, but some of them already have, very few have, but I don't know. It's just it's just an interesting statistic, I guess, to kind of pay attention for. And, once again, just would be a really big type of move across the board. But I imagine we maybe like see the levels like into Q1. But the time to gear up, potentially is now. And then if we get another pullback, which I think is coming. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm gearing for. Near Protocol is another one that has a really sizable target all the way. That's not even it. I think it's like all the way back to like $7. which would, that's like 700. So, I'm doubting that we'll see these in like a month or two's time.
For
But
2024, if it is kind of like 2020, I think that towards the end of 2024, those are decent goals. I mean, especially for crypto, a 7x from here for near, it would make sense for the next year probably.
yeah, for sure. At some point. And then, yeah, H bar is at 4 cents right now, 15 cents just about. So that, once again, nothing's guaranteed by any means. It's just something that, I've been keeping an eye on for pretty much this whole year. We haven't really hit any. I think that Litecoin was like one of the few that really has. It just kind of, yeah, like, so Litecoin's just like danced around, the yearly average there.
It almost looks like Litecoin kind of looks bullish for the short term with that reverse head and shoulder type thing.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, algo's all the way back to
like algo is a scary one. Yeah, that's
algo's all the way back to like 70 cents. So, which is like basically the high of like overall range too, with a ton of like untapped, high time frame averages in between. So, if things really turn around for the alts, I mean, they could really get going. I do foresee that we're gonna get the pullback first. Man, I'm really lagging. I'm sorry, but
no, you're not bad. You look fine to me.
Okay, but yeah, I'm still looking for this move higher. So that's the overall outlook. I think that a lot of things line up. Timing lines up. That ETF, I can't remember if it was you or I think maybe I was on with you or Forrest, and one of you
probably Forrest.
Yeah. It might have been, he might have been pointing out the ETF to say, and that was way back like last month, because when I finally was looking at some of this timing, I was like, I wonder what the news is going to be. So
there's no way they're going to approve the ETF this early. I'd be shocked.
Nah. And if they were, I feel like there'd be more talk about and nobody's really even talking about it, which is the big thing to me.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because I feel like that would be I feel like when you see my big thing on news is like there's two types of news, and one news event you kind of see coming a long way, right? People start talking about it, it's constantly thrown like the BlackRock. There was a time where like BlackRock was like about to unlock something. Or like Mt. Gox, right? Like where Mt. Gox is going to unlock Bitcoin.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, that was back in 22. Yeah.
Yeah, just stuff where you see like coming a mile away, or like FTX is about to dump their whatever, and people are talking about it for weeks on end up, and the price action's like coming down into it. But then like as soon as we get to that time frame, everybody like kind of pulls back thinking we're going to dump, and then it pumps. And there's like those news catalysts that I feel like are always just reverse catalysts.
It's usually the reverse of what many would expect. Usually it's the reverse or nothing happens from my kind of experience. Yeah.
So I feel like that is the ETF decision. But yeah, to me, I haven't seen anybody even really talking about it. I haven't really looked either, but that's an interesting one. And that is next Friday. So interesting to say the least. I'm just waiting to see if these top out. But yeah, 1900 plus and 30K plus Bitcoin, has remained those areas. And then on the flip side of that, it's like, regardless, I'm still looking down. Like if we just, if the market was just to dump from here, maybe this was our last high, still looking to 1200 to 1250 for ETH, and like 19 to 21 on Bitcoin.
Yeah. Some people are asking about the DXY right now, obviously, with that pump. Have you been charting that with that pumping a lot?
You have a chart on that, you said?
I do, but do you have one as well?
I don't actually. I haven't looked at it.
I'll take a chart. Let's
quite a while.
Let's see. How do I got to get off a full screen. Give me a second here. And then let me share my trading view right here. So you should be able to see it, right?
Yep.
And you can see that potential kind of long setup there. So for the DXY, I mean, I have it up here. Don't have much drawn out on it. But when I look at, market side for the trigger wave on the monthly, people have been talking about this, it looks pretty healthy. Looks like it wants to continue forward. Last times we've seen trigger waves on the monthly was during this recession of, in 2001 up to 2002 here. If it does play out like that, that's going to be a huge kind of, situation here. I think with all money printing, I don't think there's any way we're getting up to 130. That's going to be pretty crazy if we do. time before that was around here, which was essentially 88, which late 80s, I believe there was a recession. That would bring us a little bit higher than where we were, which would potentially coincide with the S&P 500 making a bit of a lower low, I would think, sometime early next year, early to mid next year, S&P 500 potentially making a lower low. And I think at that point, then you're just going to see enough money printing come on to, bring us back down. In the short term here, what we would look at a bit is, you're getting bearish divs on your daily, bit overheated, bit high here with that money flow. But the money flow, it's not awful. It would be more indicative of kind of somewhat of a pullback here, but we're probably not done. We're probably not completely done. One of these trigger waves that's kind of forming on some of these time frames, like the 8-hour, the 10-hour, that could be what starts to bring us back up here. And let's see. So, money flow kind of potentially coming deeper here. Short term, it does look like this would kind of coincide with what you're saying in terms of Bitcoin coming up short term. We could see a pullback down a bit further. And then I'm curious about, I've been looking at, do you think the treasury yields will go down a bit if we do see the S&P 500 and Bitcoin pump a bit here?
Potentially.
Mm.
Yeah, that's a
Tough to
tough one.
say, yeah, because they are a bit overheated, and we're seeing a fierce rejection off of like 5%, kind of telling us, it doesn't really want to be that high. But in terms of some of these time frames, like I do think on the macro, you're still pretty bullish. What'll probably end the fun here is when the Fed pivots the monthly, you get a bear dip on the monthly, but that may not be until March or April of next year by the time you really see that. 5.5% is a big area. I could see these kind of coming down. I could see this coming down a bit further over the next few weeks, especially if Bitcoin pumps, if the S&P 500 pumps. So yeah. Somebody's saying in the chat, the DXY is having an A, B, C correction, B completed, TD sell on W, bearish div daily. That's a pretty decent point. So yeah. I don't know. Do you know an ABC correction?
Yeah. I think it's just saying like from that swing low to you can't see my
Oh, you want to share your screen?
Sure.
On.
Or are they talking about the DXY?
They're talking about DXY. Somebody was asking. They're asking about Matic and AVAX as well. But
AVAX is a good one.
AVAX, yeah. If you wanted to get up AVAX, that would be interesting to let me. Yeah, here we go.
All right. So they're saying what, like a DXY, ABC correction, B completed, TD sell. Okay. So I think, yeah, they're talking along the line of like like A to B, and then they're going to look for that C.
Okay.
And then correction or, continuation to the upside. Yeah, for me, debate, what's going on?
Oh, yo, what's up?
What were we just talking about? AVAX. So AVAX has been AVAX and Algo were two that I've really been paying attention for. This little box area was what I was looking to come down into earlier this year.
Oh my, this chart just looks depressing. Oh my God. When I look at this chart, I'm just like, man, I'm never going along on this thing.
It does until you see this, though. I mean, like this, once again. So, this is like something that, all right, so this has been adjusted. So, even if we fall, which I think is possible, like, 50, 40%, like, and this is just, once again, like, not being an over, like, I'm no bear or bull at the moment. I'm just pointing out the idea that I have, which is, the market pushes up for potentially another couple weeks, 1 to 2 weeks right now.
Yeah.
If you see that rejection, you have to imagine if Bitcoin and ETH are going to pull back to 1,200 and 20K. I mean, that's just complete, that's FTX collapse style move.
Sure.
So when looking at this,
$5, yeah, something in the that's
yeah,
what I've been saying for a while.
I'm just playing around with this
Yeah.
gold pocket up here, for example, and like no matter if you pull it from where it is now down to currently where the low is, or even a little lower, it remains in this region, right?
Mm.
And what do you see? I have up here as well, right? The untapped yearly pivot. So major target for me, whether it's end of this year, into beginning next year, whatever the case may be, right? So if you're, somebody who's potentially bullish and looking at DCA, whatever, do you, of course. But like for me, I see a potential 400% rally at some point, and that's not really doing anything crazy, right? That's just getting, you could call it a dead cat bounce if you wanted to, but bear market rally, whatever. But I do think that we'd see that move, and that really wouldn't be doing anything aside from pushing back up to some old regions here. So yeah, that's AVAX definitely has that on the board. Once again, at the moment, I would imagine we probably head a little lower over time. Very short term, we probably head up and then back down. Like I said, like similar to Bitcoin, Ethereum, right? Looking for potential. I'm looking honestly to see the whole market push up for like the next 7 to 10 days.
Yeah.
And then down, right? So that's the idea. So Pumptober, all those news narratives, like don't fall in love with them, especially that ETF one. If we start pushing up into that, that could very well be a buy the rumor, sell the news, type of thing. But then after that, I think that we got legs, I think that if we're just literally spitting out just some, what ifs, I think that after that move, if we get it, that's when we could see potentially Bitcoin push up to the 50K gold pocket, in Q1 of next year, possibly, and like stuff like that, right? So like you'll see some big moves, and if we're going to get 400% moves and 700% moves out of the altcoins to some of those, averages, to see Bitcoin flip up 100%, 120, over the course of 6 months or something, that won't be totally out of the, like, once again, it's going to be where the alts are outperforming, but Bitcoin's still going to move, so it's there. Yet to be seen, but that's kind of like where my head's at, I guess, as far as like a larger term idea right now.
Yeah.
Matic is, just similar. I mean, all the altcoins essentially look the same.
They look very sick, except if you look at like Caspa or certain esoteric ones.
Right.
Yeah.
Something that's like you got the rare, bear market pump right now. Like how what was it? Link, like back in the day, Chainlink was like one of the only coins moving in like 2018.
Yeah. And
that's quite
now it's just stable coin. They actually converted to stable coin status.
Yeah, very, very much so.
Yeah.
But yeah, I honestly wouldn't be surprised to see Matic push all the way back up to these areas here. But there's a lot of road ahead of us here. So,
what do you think are the odds we lose like the July of 22 low, like, or retest that?
For Matic?
Yeah, like the 30-cent area. Like, what do you think I think it's pretty likely we'll retest that at least 30 cents, low 30s.
Yeah, I mean, it's always possible. I mean, like, be a pretty sizable drop from where we are now. It's 40%. I don't know. That's pretty big. And like I said, just from me looking at the overall, like the whole market's going to kind of blanket, move with Bitcoin and Ethereum. I mean, I guess if we dumped 40% right now, would be the target down there. But either way, my thing is for me is that I'm just looking at Bitcoin and ETH, and when they get to 1200, or if they get to 1200 ETH, 2019 to 21 Bitcoin, that would just kind of be like my entry area for all the altcoins, if that makes sense. And I mean, yeah, you might not catch the exact low, maybe it's like a 10%, but I'm not talking about leverage trades anyways. I'm talking about, spot buy and holds. If you're where you don't want to get too greedy, potentially you're going to miss 5 or 8%, around the bottom, but it's kind of like getting Bitcoin at like 16.5 or 15.5, that month of time frame where we were sitting there. But if you look back now, you'd be laughing if you got it at 16.5. But yeah, I mean, you could definitely come back and retest that low here.
Yeah. Yeah. I
What
mean,
is
there's a lot of people
your
that probably sold at 16.5. It's kind of sad, actually.
the most gangster shakeout I've ever seen, man? Right at the low.
Yeah.
Everybody I know reached out and was like, "Oh, I'm getting out of it." Everybody was afraid that all the exchanges were going to collapse. FTX was just the beginning.
Yeah.
Literally, I was like, "Wow!" There's nothing you can say at that point. And then just looking back at it, I'm just all you did was you just 100% rip right off the lows.
Yep.
What do you see in Bitcoin and ETH? Are we kind of like in line or?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if we'll make it. I haven't really been talking about 30K too much. But let me share my screen right here for a second. And yeah, let's go to, I already was. Okay. And then, yeah, so I think you could see, right? My screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that in the short term more, when I look at some of these time frames, especially like, we're in this big place right here. If you were to break above, 28.8, I mean, that's a big place to break above. If you break above there, theoretically, from the volume area low to the high, it's an older one, but that's 31.3 theoretically that you could get up to. I know that's like above your kind of place. That's one technical target. Not sure if we'd make it that high. You could wick up that high. When I look at the more short term, I like the daily in terms of money flow coming up, crossing from red to green right here, which makes me think it would be in line with like 29 to 30K. Yeah, that kind of area. I mean, maybe high 28s would be a possibility. We do need to really solidify this, which I think what will happen. We need to break through where we are essentially right now, around 28, which is your 200 weekly moving average. We got to break through that and keep it. I mean, right here was a fierce rejection from that area. Right here was a fierce rejection. Third time could be the charm, though, and this pattern is generally kind of bullish. So if you break above here, then you're at 28.7. If you break above 28.7, then your next area is essentially where you were talking about, the high 29s, low 30s, essentially. So that's ultimately what I'm kind of looking at. And if you did kind of map that out, where we could potentially, peak out and end with this, it's around mid-October. And if you look at kind of this pattern every time here, we come into the green, you got about, let's see, 5 more days or so of kind of bullishness, 5 more days, 6 more days once we kind of break out. So yeah, I think we got 5 to 10 more days, probably a good week. Kind of, I'm very in line with what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, probably a good week and then potentially coming down. When I look at, sometimes, a chart I've been looking at a lot here is ETH versus Bitcoin, which looks like it could fall off a cliff pretty soon. And I think it probably will once you see that fierce rejection off of 30K or whatever. I think ETH will get hit hard here. I mean, it's pretty inflationary right now. That 2-week, if we look at the money flow in the 2-week right here for ETH versus Bitcoin, look at where we were the last time it was like this, right at this place right here, June of 2019, right there, that general area. I mean, I don't know if you're gonna come down this much, but it's possible to go down to 0.03. There's not much to latch onto. That's a big freaking correction against Bitcoin. 46% drop against Bitcoin. I don't know. Maybe you'd have to kind of come down and make a lower low for ETH if that does happen. So we'll definitely see what happens there. In terms of Bitcoin dominance, I'd like to look at this this formation is generally pretty bullish in my opinion. And if you break off of this from this kind of reverse head and shoulder thing right here, which you are kind of breaking out of it, I'd say right now, your technical target's going to be at around 52, maybe even higher. And I think that could continue forward on the way down to low 20s, on the way down to low 20s here. And alts probably will get demolished, at least against Bitcoin. And your technical target for this is at all the way up at like 58, 59, right up here. I think you're at least going to get up to like 55. I think that's kind of a given at this point. I'd be surprised if you can't. And I think ultimately, like you were saying, it would make sense kind of November, December as that prime altcoin accumulation spot, potentially into pre-halving, potentially into like March of next year. So, I mean, DCing alts right now, obviously not a bad idea by any means, in my opinion, but you got to keep in mind, a lot of these alts could probably go down in another 40 to 50% from where they are right now. And you got to have a strong enough stomach to deal with that and wait long enough. So, but
Right.
yeah, I think a lot of your targets are good for like late 2024, early 2025. I mean, do you think that I have a question for you? I mean, do you think that let's say we do something where Bitcoin doesn't make a new all-time high, where we just get up to like 40, 50K in the next bull run? Do you think like some of these alts still will get to those levels that you were talking about next year or something? Or do you think to get to those levels you were talking about in a lot of these alts, those like nice 12-month pivots or whatever, do you think Bitcoin and ETH have to make new all-time highs for that to happen? Or
Oh no, not at all. That's like for those the levels I just kind of went over, like to just see like 3 to 500, and then that sounds big. So let's just say 2 to 300% impulse moves in the altcoins from where they are now, because of the if something like that was to go down, we would start to see the decline in Bitcoin dominance, right? Like that's the differentiator right now, because we've seen a huge move in Bitcoin over the last like year,
yeah,
and nothing in the alts and whatever. And to see those moves, yeah, you would almost imagine like because they haven't done anything so far to the equivalent 100% rally. But when the dominance starts to shift, which is where I think we're going to be pretty soon here, especially if this whole move that that we're potentially anticipating here unfolds like down to 20K and a region. I see the alts like just outperforming, and Bitcoin's still going up, but Bitcoin could hit like I think I think there's a good chance that Bitcoin runs it back to like 46 to 50K, which I think is like the gold pocket, from the overall high to low at the moment,
Hmm.
which is kind of where everybody was targeting, in the summer of this year. And if we were to see that kind of move, especially off of 20K, that's a potential like 150% move in Bitcoin. What is usually the rule of thumb is double whatever Bitcoin does, right? So 150 in Bitcoin is potentially a 300% move in alts. So yeah, I don't think it has to go back to all-time highs to see some of those levels. And I don't necessarily think that we, and once again, like we're getting like super far ahead of ourselves in the sense of even trying to predict like a year or two out. So I'm really looking at like literally the next 6 months.
Yeah.
That's kind of honestly, that's kind of the time frame for me, is that's what I'm, looking at, is like, I don't necessarily think that these levels are that far away from us. I don't necessarily think it is, I know we're only used to sideways and down right now, but I don't think we're going to have to wait the whole year of 2024. I think that this is going to come fast and furious. And
The biggest moves do happen very quickly. I mean, that is true. I want to just look at, like, for example, I know you talked about Cardano, comparing what it did in like 2020. If we could look at maybe the weekly here, because this was, yeah, I mean, you had if you do see, don't factor in the pandemic. If you do see from the jump from that whole first half of 2020, very bullish, then some consolidation, and then you came back, then you just jumped all the way back up. So let's say we do see, based on what you were saying, we have a jump up to maybe 30 cents or something, then we drop back down to 20, maybe 15 cents, maybe test this area 15 cents, and then that could be more towards the end of the year, and then kind of January upward for the first half or whatever. What was your target, your 12-month pivot on Cardano?
70.
70. That could be your rally up to 70 mid-year. Do you think that's kind of a decent timeline to predict for it?
Yeah, I think that everything will probably rally into the halvening, and then we'll kind of see where things go from there. And that rally could very well start like next month. But mind you, it's like such a hard thing to like depict, right? Because like we're literally we're just analyzing data at the end of the day, so
Yeah.
definitely be hella wrong. But at the moment, there's technical targets for me up to 30K Bitcoin, and that's up to, it doesn't have to hit it. Like you said, we were looking, could go to 31, could go to 20, maybe it's already topped, maybe 28 was the high, but technically 31 was the high in July. So regardless from where we topped out in July, wherever we kind of get the secondary high right now, I think that we're still going to continue lower into the end of this month. And then, yeah, I think that November, man, into December is going to offer, some opportunities to kind of grab everything around a second. Somebody had mentioned, I think it's this person right here, RJ Wired, said, isn't this like, or could this be the opposite of what happened in November 21? Everybody was looking at Bitcoin going from 69 to 100. We expect one more dip, but perhaps the bottom is in. So I agree that the bottom is in. I don't necessarily think that we're going to shoot past 15.5. for Bitcoin at least. Some of the altcoins obviously can kind of vary, but we're looking at the higher low. And you a second ago, you kind of mentioned like overlooking the pandemic. And, for me, I don't necessarily think that you should. I think that was very well the higher low at the time. And I think that we're about to come down and make that similar move, just not as aggressively. Mind you, we didn't go up as aggressively either, right? Back in the last market cycle, we went from 3K to 14 or 15 and then down to 3. There's a pretty aggressive move up, aggressive move down.
Yeah.
We didn't really have that much of an aggressive move up, so we don't have as much downside potential at this point either. So, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at there.
Yeah, I think you got it right. I mean, I think most likely that's probably what's going to happen, something along those lines. I mean, for the main, like, where do you think it's probably too late to be buying alts? Like, where do you think most people will miss out? Like, would somebody, somebody who starts buying alts, say late 2024, is that too late? Or is that like, will it be like last time where, it's like looking at the Cardano chart, obviously, if you were buying at the beginning of kind of 2021, basically too late. You got a little bit, but you missed
it's, I think that at this point, full disclosure, I used to be somebody who very heavily leaned on previous price action, fractals.
Yeah.
Like, I was a 250K, Bitcoin guy back in the day.
Gotcha.
And what I learned from all that though, once that was not obviously the
returns.
case. Yeah. I really just learned to just, really take everything as it comes. And I also like really just dove into the markets as far as like, just kind of sharpening my edge, I guess, and sharpening my toolkit. And, as this market grows, from 2017 was probably the most epic bull run that we could have all ever been a part of if you were a part of it. And the reasoning behind that was that, it was only an $800 billion market. You saw several, XRP, Tron, Cardano, whatever, go thousands of percent up in a course of like 30 days, some of them. But, that kind of time frame is gone as we're kind of breaking into the $1 trillion market now. It just takes a lot more money and a lot more time to move things. On top of that, we have like 20,000 plus, altcoins, and there's just a lot more opportunities at the moment, I guess. And it just kind of slows down those growths. And where I'm going with that more than anything is like, I guess a good comparison is, I remember, I started a trading group in like right during COVID, basically, right? Everybody kind of sitting at home. I was like, man, all I do is, I was in another trading group and I was just just in it all day long. I kind of felt like I outgrew the person that was running it. So I was like, I'll try my own thing, whatever. And one of my first charts I put up was Solana, and it was December of 2020. So call it January 2021. And if we're looking at a similar time frame, that's probably putting you at the end of next year. And Solana was $1 like at that point. And it's still 300x, just about after that. So to answer like, when's too late, whatever, I would always just recommend not chasing the pumps and just looking for the pullbacks. I mean, like, even in 2021, what did we get a couple times? You got the huge pullback in May. You got a huge pullback in September. You got, like, there's still going to be those pullbacks. Honestly, the market, today's market, the way we see it, is pretty much a bull market. Like when you get these, pretty nice pumps and dump, like that's the bull market. There's just not 58 days in between of sideways. Like you just erase all that. Like we just go from like, pump to dump to, a couple of days of scaredness, and then you pump it back up or whatever the case may be. So, yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things I think you have to just manage along the way.
Yeah, I'm looking at Solana right now, and I mean, I think that you could probably get up to like $32 around that. This area looks big for it right here.
So Solana for me has been one of the few.
Wait, you want to share your screen for Solana? You got something there?
Yeah, I was gonna say, even before, like, so, last couple of weeks, I think everybody got really, I don't know why, and maybe just because the price was pushing up a little bit, but Solana to me is a possible, right? Just keyword. I've compared it to the previous bear market, Cardano, where I think that, from the lows, from that like $8 mark, I'm don't think we necessarily could, 100x from it, but I think that this has a really good potential to like push up really nicely. What were you about to say with it though? Because I was just going to point out that you have like a really nice system of low, high, higher lows, higher highs.
I was looking at that. I was also saying $30 seems big if you look at that wick at $30.
Mm-hmm.
Not 38. That seems a little high, but for the
This one
short,
right here.
yeah, that around that wick for the next 2 weeks, I think that's a good
Oh
goal.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for like the next couple of weeks here, yeah, I think you could probably push back up into, if we're going to see like a similar move. Oh, that's pretty big. That's like 40%.
Oh, gee, I didn't even know it was that much. Wow. That's a
I mean, it
lot.
could, I guess, like you never
Yeah.
know. I'm just going to see what the local gold pocket is here. So you got a little gold pocket at like 27, which is just above us here. So like 18%. That kind of sounds a little bit more in line, if the market kind of pushes up. If you were looking at this in like a pseudo range, I guess, you could almost like call that the high without pulling any kind of volume profile. But so that kind of makes some sense. I think we could push up to that. But yeah, my, one of those untapped yearly pivots for this is all the way back up at like $66, which, mind you, I do imagine we probably pulled that. Like this box right here has had my attention for quite some time. There's an untapped quarterly level here. It's the old low, which, maybe we take it. Global POC, which is basically if you merged all the data ever here on Binance, which is
that $3 area is huge. Yeah,
money, man. If you get down to 2, I mean, that'd be obnoxious. That's like a 90% drop if we have it. We might not, but that would definitely be the move. And looking at all the data, this is the highest area of volume. So, and once again, think back to like when I was just talking about 2021. Is it $1? So the most people bought into Solana, like literally, even after we ran up to 260, all that going there. You still have the most amount of volume all the way at the beginning, basically, which is interesting. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if we'll get that low. I think that a return back to like $8 to $10, that 997.
That's over a 50% drop from where we are right now. If we were to,
that'd be pretty gnarly.
So you think Solana probably would, in that circumstance, Solana would probably dump harder than Cardano or a lot of the other alts, right?
If Bitcoin, so once again, like kind of, how it is with
hard to say.
Bitcoin, let's just pretend Bitcoin drops 30%.
Sure.
That opens up the door for every alt to drop 60. Like that, it's not uncommon to see, Bitcoin drop 1% and the alts drop double that. A lot of times you don't see ETH do that necessarily. So, but everything else is potentially at risk of something like that. So, I mean, it's in line, say we get another like 18% push up and you get a decent little, nasty drop out of Bitcoin. I mean, that's a 60% drop. It sounds unrealistic at the moment, but we all know how quick that can, go down. I mean, this was the FTX collapse, right? So for a perfect example, that was 70%. I believe that was right. Was that November last year?
That guy hit the hardest. That and FTT.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, technically, I was gonna say, but during that like pull down, what did you have? Like Bitcoin dropped like 35 ish, right here. Not even, so 30%. So and yeah, I mean, they got hit harder because of FTX and what have you. But that's a really good example there.
Yeah, that's what I think is we're going to see probably Bitcoin go down at least 30, high 20s to 30. And then we're going to see a lot of these alts probably go down 50 or so. And then at that point, that's the point to start converting Bitcoin over to alts, to start buying ETH and altcoins, really focus on that, I would say.
Yeah, that's kind of my plan. If we come down, into these areas, and once again, up first is still kind of my idea here, and then down, and then I think that's, overall when looking at just market structure, right? Nothing's really broken, even though that would be a bad day from high to low. You'd still have your low, you got a high. Let's just say we shit the bed. Now you got your high or low, right? That would be our COVID dump.
Yeah.
Equivalent, essentially. It still kind of sets us up. We're still in a bullish structure to get out of there. So it's just trying to survive those drops.
What do
And like,
you? Yeah, sorry to interrupt. I was going
yep.
to ask, like, we got a few minutes left here. What do you think of like the S&P 500 in terms of all of this, like, perspective for? I mean, I think that it would generally follow the S&P 500 on the jump up for the next 2 weeks, and then probably generally follow Bitcoin on the drop down. And I think that typically we do see Bitcoin bottom before the S&P 500. I think my guess is more of the beginning of next year could be more bearish for the S&P 500 when Bitcoin is a little bit more bullish. Tough to say though. Oh, okay, we're testing the 12-month key level for that.
Yeah, I mean, let me just see something here. When was November? Let's just see what kind of percentage drops September.
Yeah, November was it was pretty bear. I think it was bearish.
Yeah, I was just trying to see like what the drop was on S&P during the FTX deal, and it actually seems like
It kept going up, I think, generally.
I was gonna say
Yeah.
it kind of went the opposite way. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, S&P, I got one major level all the way back down in this area, and I don't think we're gonna come down to that quite yet. Pushing up a little bit higher, potentially up to this like 4,500, so like another $100, and then which would essentially just close out this range right here. So we got an old quarterly range I'm looking at. So we're basically in this region, kind of tops it at like 4,500, and then let me see something real quick. What did you say you saw the S&P coming down to, or?
So my guess was kind of at some point we would potentially maybe take out that low by a little bit and come down to 3,400 or something in sometime early next year if we do see a lot of red months ahead of us. Short term into the end of the year, I think 4,000, into November, 4,000 could be a good area. I haven't been charting the S&P 500 too much, but it kind of looks to me like that has more of a potential of making a lower low rather than Bitcoin.
It looks like this chart is actually not. I was just about to say, like, this is weird because it's stopped at June. So I haven't looked at the S&P for so long. So yeah, this is not even an active chart.
Oh, wait. Oh, what?
Yeah,
Oh, you're looking at, okay. You're
I was
not
about to look at this and I was like, that's kind of weird.
Yeah, because we're low. I was about to say, yeah, we're lower than 44. We're about, what are we at right now? We're at, I'll just, I got to get off and prepare for Twitter Spaces that
Sure, yeah.
doing in a few minutes. But the last thing, I'll show you my chart in the S&P 500, what I'm looking at for that, and let's just go to that.
I was gonna say I still am looking for like 3,200 is like 33-ish, which is right below that low, like you were saying. Like if we came,
I think it's going to take time to see that. I think you may see that like sometime early next year to mid next year. And then you probably pump like crazy into the election or something if we do come that low with all the QE. But I think this area right here is just huge, kind of that pre-pandemic area. And when you factor in inflation, all that, 3,300 is like essentially coming down 50 or 60% for the S&P 500, factoring in buying power. So that's like real recession type stuff. You got that your monthly coming down, trigger wave to the downside on your monthly, and then, you're looking at just like what you said. I mean, some of the short term, kind of like Bitcoin, bull div, money flow coming back up here. This has had a pretty good day today as well. Let's see. Yeah, pretty good Friday. Just curious real quick about silver because I keep my eye on silver a little bit. That pumped up. Yeah. So we're seeing metals recover a bit too, which is good if you're holding metals, obviously. And I think that may continue for, the next week or two, something of that nature, potentially. That post market right there. But after that, I do think more of these bearish things will play out. You do have kind of a trigger wave for me on the weekly, but with that VWAP, I think it could come down deeper. And then if you look at kind of, this pattern here with the money flow coming out, if we repeat something kind of like over here, that general area, there into February, you're at 37. Could be quicker than that, though. I mean, even if you were to repeat, one of these declines, that's a steeper decline down. Oof, right to there. That's in December, and then a bit of a lower low early next year. Then the Fed pivots kind of, and then you jump around these levels. Then you're kind of recovering. But I do think that The other interesting point too is if you were to look at, I believe, yeah, on the 2-week here, very similar to '08 crash. So probably not going to be that bad. 2-week right here, oh geez, very similar to beginning of recession type periods in these areas. And if we look at the SPX to get more data here on the 2-week, what was interesting was another high inflationary time was obviously 1974. In terms of money flow, you're in for I'm not saying it's coming down this much, but in terms of money flow, you could be. And then World War II was actually another big kind of place with that. You had your low here in World War II, 1938, and your second low was a lot farther down. It was years later, more of an extended type thing. So it's interesting to look at. I don't know, but I would guess you would kind of follow Bitcoin to a certain extent in terms of that, like kind of hedge against inflation. We come down more, potentially make a lower low into sometime early next year, and then kind of recover with Bitcoin. I don't think they're going to let it, come down that low. You know what I mean? In an election year, I don't think it's going to be like '08. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But
Yeah.
anyway, man, that's all I got. I got to get prepared for Twitter Spaces. I'm going to do in a little bit. So we did a good hour on here. Any place people should follow you? I know you're on TikTok, Twitter.
Yeah, you can check out everything out on my website, leadingcrypto.io. Kind of has everything. And then, on Twitter is CBO_crypto. TikTok, same thing. So always a pleasure, man. Good stuff. I'm hoping we have some stuff to talk about in like 2 weeks.
Yeah. We'll probably do another one.
If some of these areas get hit.
Yeah, I've been probably do another one in 2 weeks. Hopefully we'll talk again when we're at 30K and getting that big rejection, hopefully. Anyway,
That's
man.
it, man.
Yeah.
Enjoy your Twitter space. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and be sure to smash the like for my man Evan if you haven't already.
Yeah, thanks so much, man.